evening and welcome to Just the News. I'm Faye. It is Friday, so we're going to give you an update of everything that's important happening around you in the country and the world before you tap out for the weekend. Our first story should actually come with a trigger warning, which I'm going to give you because it was very upsetting. It was also the viral video that went viral all over the internet was particularly upsetting. We're not going to run that video, but the details of the story could be distressing to people who are already experiencing some anxiety. This is what happened. 2 civilians were killed in Assam. 20 people were injured on Thursday after an anti-encroachment drive turned violent in Assam's Darang district. It led to a brutal encounter of the police with protesting citizens, brutal police action caught on video. So what happened was the police were, based on orders of the government, were removing people from their homes and demolishing those homes because it was apparently on encroached land. There were some of these citizens who protested and the police fired on them. One particular video went viral. In that video, one single man armed with a stick comes running out of the bushes from the village towards the police. He is shot point blank in the chest, but even after he is shot and he lies motionless on the ground, he is beaten and kicked and even jumped on by one individual who's holding a camera, who turns out to be the official district administration photographer. The state government has ordered a probe into the matter, which will be led by a retired High Court judge. There are two things, obviously, of deep concern. People are very worried about that photographer and the inhumane behavior, but the larger question to ask is why the police were firing on an unarmed protester who only had a stick in his hand. According to NDTV, the superintendent of police, Sushanta Biswa Sarma, said that, and I quote, 9 of our policemen were injured, 2 civilians were also injured. They've been shifted to hospital. Things are now normal. The chief minister of the state, Hemanta Biswa Sarma, said yesterday, and I quote, the police are doing their duty. As per my information, people attacked the police with machetes, spears and other things. Eviction has restarted after this incident and will continue tomorrow as well, end quote. Thursday's eviction drive is the latest in a series carried out over the last 3 months in Dhalpur, a village populated mostly by Muslims of Eastern Bengal origin. They're Bengali-speaking Muslims in Assam. It's a massive exercise that was conducted on Monday. The Assam government is claimed to have reclaimed huge chunks of land of at least, leaving at least 800 families completely homeless. The first round of evictions of this kind started in June this year after Hemanta Biswa Sarma's cabinet approved the formation of a committee to utilize the 77,000 bighas of government land that had apparently been freed from encroachers for agricultural purposes. The other big story that you will see splashed on all the headlines is the Prime Minister's visit to the United States. Now remember, this is his first visit after the Biden-Harris administration took over. So it's an important visit. He's on that official visit. He met with the US Vice President Kamala Harris earlier today in Washington, D.C. The press release from the White House said that they discussed COVID pandemic, collaborative efforts to respond and recover, and a cooperation on vaccine production as well. Now, they will be, or these conversations are under the Quad vaccine partnership. Now, you'll hear a lot about the Quad. I just wanted to take a minute to explain to you what the Quad is. So the Prime Minister is actually officially there to attend the Quad meeting. The Quad is short for the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. It is a group of 4 countries, which is the United States, Australia, India, and Japan. Now, these 4 countries started a maritime cooperation between them after the tsunami of 2004, because these 4 countries that were interested in working together at that time. But since then, they have actually worked on a much broader agenda. It includes tackling security, economic, health issues. The Quad had actually met virtually during the COVID period, and they talked about, and they all committed to providing Asian countries with a certain number of vaccines during that COVID period. This is the first in-person meeting of the Quad after COVID, at least. So the Prime Minister is there to attend that meeting. US President Joe Biden, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, and Japanese Prime Minister Suga will be there. 4-nation Quad alliance aims to check really China's growing military and economic power globally. So that's a really important meeting from a China point of view. China is not pleased with this meeting. Now, this also happens a week after a new partnership was announced that sort of made the world sit up and take notice. It's called the AUKUS military and technology pact. It involves Australia, Britain, and the United States, the US, UK, and Australia. This was a complete surprise announcement that came in last week. What this will mean is that the Royal Navy of Britain and the US armed forces will share high-end technology with Australia, helping it build nuclear propulsion submarines. So these are specifically submarines powered with nuclear power. They have cyber capabilities, long-range precision weapons, and artificial intelligence for Australia. Now, again, India put out a statement that's not particularly happy with this announcement, but it's not involved in it. But between the Quad and, of course, AUKUS, what this does is it signals the involvement right now of Western powers in Asia-Pacific as a region, and the power tilting in that Asia-Pacific as a region. And perhaps also some experts have said the formation of two blocks, the US bloc and the China bloc, where every country will have to pick one of the two sides that it wants to be part of. But really, the focus is going to be China in this Quad meeting. And India, as we know, as far as everything that's happened in Ladakh and Galwan Valley, we have a lot to talk about as far as China is concerned. So because of these two new spaces that are developing, this is something to watch out for. And that's the Quad, and you'll read a lot about it if you read the newspapers over the next few days. But I'll bring you a full breakdown of what happens in this Quad meeting as well. In the meantime, in a different story, India has rejected Beijing's comments on the Galwan Valley incident and reiterated that that standoff at the line of actual control is because of China's provocative behavior. The Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson said, and I quote, "Our position with regards to developments last year at the line of actual control at Eastern Ladakh has been clear and consistent. It was the provocative behavior and unilateral attempts of the Chinese side to alter the status quo in contravention without bilateral agreements that resulted in a disturbance of peace and tranquility." India is responding to China's statement, which blamed India for the standoff. The Chinese spokesperson earlier said the Galwan Valley incident took place because India violated all treaties and agreements and encroached upon China's territory illegally and crossed the line. So, of course, a lot going on really in our foreign affairs, and we're going to keep you, like I said, keep you updated. We'll bring you an update and breakdown of everything that does happen. Moving on to other stories. The central government has signed a 21,000 crore rupee contract with Airbus Defence and Space to procure 56 C-295 aircraft for the Indian Air Force. Now, while 16 aircraft will be delivered in flyaway condition by the Airbus Defence and Space within 48 months of signing the contract, the remaining 40 planes will be manufactured in India by a consortium of Airbus and Tata Advanced Systems Limited over the next 10 years. So this is really the first of its kind project where military aircraft will be manufactured in India by a private company. And in another very disturbing story coming out of Delhi, there was one person under trial presented in court today who was shot inside the courtroom. Now, a gangster, Jitender Gogi, was gunned down inside a courtroom, and the two gangsters from a rival gang who shot him were also killed by the police. This was the Rohini court complex in Delhi just today. The bar and bench quoted sources saying the incident took place inside courtroom number 207, where Gogi, who is the under trial, was produced this morning. Two men walked in dressed as lawyers. They were carrying guns. They stated to have shot and killed Gogi, and the Delhi police then killed the two assailants in retaliation. Delhi Police Commissioner Rakesh Asthana told NDTV today that the two from the rival gang opened fire on Gogi inside the court. That is when the police retaliated and killed the two assailants, end quote. In politics, and the drama continues for Punjab, barely a few hours after the new Punjab Chief Minister returned from Delhi after his meeting with the Congress party, he's been summoned again. Punjab Chief Minister Charanjit Singh has once again been summoned to the national capital for a new round of meetings with the high command of his party. The Congress has not yet finalized the names of cabinet ministers. According to Indian Express, the Punjab Pradesh Congress Committee Chief Navjot Singh Sidhu is also expected to reach Delhi to be part of these discussions. Now, Chief Minister Chani was called to Delhi on Thursday. He met with K.C. Venugopal, he met with Harish Chaudhary, Ajay Markan of the party. He also, in a second meeting, met with Rahul Gandhi, went back to Punjab, and in a few hours was called back to Delhi again. So the Congress party in Punjab still taking time to settle down with its new chief minister. An update right now on the COVID numbers, and we continue to bring you COVID numbers because it's still important. India reported 31,382 new COVID cases, 318 deaths. Kerala reported 17,983 new COVID cases. Those numbers are actually lower than they were a few weeks ago, and that's a good sign. In the meantime, Tamil Nadu Health Secretary J. Radhakrishnan has announced that over 400 students in the state have tested positive for COVID since the schools resumed on the 1st of September. The schools resumed for classes 9 to 12. Now, Minister Radhakrishnan went on to say that even though students have tested positive after schools were reopened, the situation, according to him, is not alarming and most cases have been isolated and sporadic. In Maharashtra, the Minister for School Education, Varsha Gaikwad, has announced that the state will reopen schools in the state of Maharashtra starting the 4th of October. She went on to say that Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray, the task force and the health department have all approved this decision. The state government wants students to come back to school. Varsha Gaikwad said, and I quote, in rural areas, classes will resume from standard 5 to 12. In urban areas, only from standard 8 to 12. She also said that students can come to school only with the consent of their parents. Attendance will not be made compulsory for any beneficiary scheme or examination, and students can continue receiving their education both online and offline. On to news coming in right now from the world of business and the stock market. It was a good day at the stock market today in India. The BSE Sensex scripted history and crossed the 60,000 point mark today. It added 163 points and closed past 60,000 at 60,048. But during the day of trade, it had crossed a new high of 60,333. That was a fresh high added today. Big day for the market. The National Stock Exchange Nifty also hit a fresh peak of 17,853, up 30 points, a new lifetime high of 17,948 during the day. In the meantime, in the central government, the government has withdrawn spending curbs that were placed on ministries and government departments during COVID and now has allowed them to spend as per their budget estimates for the rest of the financial year. This decision was apparently triggered by a rise in government revenue, which is running ahead of budgeted targets despite the impact of the second wave of COVID on economic activity between April and May. Remember, the Finance Ministry had in July and September quarter imposed a 20% spending cut on all ministries and departments because of the second wave of COVID and the hit to the economy. So what's happened now is basically there's been a rise in the revenues that the government makes, and the revenues is largely from taxes. And so they've been able to lift the 20% curb. This is a good thing because higher government spending means more money will hit the economy. But at the same time, we must remember that this revenue is coming in from taxes. Humongous taxes being placed on petrol and diesel and pressure to the average family, and that's maybe something the government could consider removing or reducing as well. Look now at news coming in from across the world. According to a senior official in the Taliban will, and I quote, resume executions and amputations. We're cutting off the hands of criminals they convict, though perhaps not in public. In an interview with the Associated Press, the official said, and I quote, everyone criticized us for the punishments in the stadium, but we've never said anything about their laws and their punishment. No one will tell us what our laws should be. We will follow Islam and we will make our laws on the Quran. The world leaders feared that the Taliban would force harsh punishments, especially on women, similar to what they had done back in the 1990s. The Taliban kept telling us or kept making statements that they have changed, but their recent actions don't really coincide with their claim that they have changed. Remember, they banned women from playing sports. Now they banned women from going to work altogether. They've banned the broadcast of the IPL. It does seem, of course, that this is the very same Taliban and nothing really has changed. One piece of positive news before we leave you, because I'm not going to leave you on that story. That was grim. A very heartwarming video. A 90-year-old woman from Madhya Pradesh, is Devas district, was seen driving a car. She's apparently very recently learned how to drive. Resham Bai told ANI that she learned to drive because her family members, including her daughter and her daughter's-in-law, know how to drive. She said, "Hey, I want to know how to drive as well." That she likes driving and has even driven tractors. Clapping for her efforts, the Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan tweeted saying, "Grandmother has inspired all of us that no age bar in fulfilling our interests." That brings us to the end of the news. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, we're keeping an eye for you on the Quad and the developments in the US, and we'll bring you a breakdown of it fairly soon. But do enjoy your weekend. Leave me a little star in the comments if you reach the end of the bulletin. It makes it easier for me to actually count the number of people who reach the end of the bulletin. It also helps us pop up on the algorithm, especially if you're on YouTube. Leave us a comment. It'll be nice to hear from you. Thank you for your support for this small team and all of the work that we're doing. Enjoy your weekend. Good night.